Okay, I'm going to quickly go over some important points. So if you don't have these things written down already, you'll want to write them down now. Important point number 1, never mark the conclusion of a categorical syllogism when you're creating your Venn diagram. I know you've got this burned into your brain already. Mark the premise statements only. If you have a categorical syllogism that has a universal and a particular premise, mark the universal premise first. If you have a categorical syllogism that has 2 universal premises, it doesn't matter which premise you mark first. You get exactly 1 plain X to represent a premise that is a particular statement. In other words, a statement that begins with the word some. It's a some are or a some are not statement, an I claim or an O claim. If there are 2 areas you could place an X to reflect a particular premise, put the X across the line, across the arc between the 2 areas. And that proves this argument is invalid because we don't know where the X actually falls. If after marking the premises you see the conclusion reflected in the diagram, then that argument is unconditionally valid. It's valid from both the Boolean and Aristotelian standpoints. If not, if you don't see the conclusion of the argument after marking the premises, then the argument is invalid from the Boolean standpoint. But the argument might be conditionally valid, might be valid from the Aristotelian standpoint. So then you go back and you look at your Venn diagram, and if any area of the 3 circles is the only area of the circle left unshaded, you get to put a circled X in that area. That circled X says there's at least one of these things here, provided these things exist at all. So now we're going to go back and we're going to re-examine the diagram to see if the conclusion statement of the categorical syllogism is reflected by that diagram. And if it is, that argument is conditionally valid from the Aristotelian standpoint, and we can consult our Aristotelian inventory of conditionally valid forms to determine which is the critical term, which is the condition for validity that has to be met. If we don't see the conclusion statement, though, reflected in our Venn diagram after we marked our circled X, then the argument is invalid from the Aristotelian standpoint as well as the Boolean standpoint. Always cross-check your work. You'd be surprised how frequently people, including me, make mistakes. And so if we cross-check our work by creating a Venn diagram, by consulting our inventory of valid forms, then we're going to have more confidence that our answers are correct. And if we see something, if we draw a particular conclusion from our Venn diagram that's not supported by the inventory of valid forms, something's wrong. Something's gone haywire. Okay, and that's a good sort of a stop sign for us to not move forward any further until we figure out what's gone wonky. All right, so there's your important points.